We're all going to pretend that we're all skiing today, and we're at après ski. Perfect. And having a little entertainment, hopefully a few chuckles along the way. So welcome. If you have not been here before, my name is Jess Edberg. I am currently right now the host for History Happy Hour, which is a monthly 30-minute or less program on Ely area history. And it is not intended to be a deep dive. I am not a historian. I do work at the Dorothy Wolter Museum, but I am just a history enthusiast and wanted to provide a way for folks to have a different way of learning about something new and interesting, or maybe coming in and reminiscing about something they're familiar with or they lived through. And so tonight's program will scratch the surface, and the goal is to have an informal but educational program in about the time it takes to drink your beverage of choice, because we have some college students here tonight to give a little extra credit. Thanks for coming, you guys. Excellent. So tonight's program is going to be about Ely's ski jumps, because there were several at one time. And I do have some folks to acknowledge. So of course the Boathouse Brew Club for hosting this and allowing me to do this here once a month. Afterwards, this area will close and you're invited to go back downstairs. They'll have open mic night. So if you want to have some more beverages or order some tasty treats, downstairs will be more than happy to assist you there. The Folk School and Boundary Waters Connect help with the audio portion of this. This is also being recorded to hopefully go on the museum's YouTube channel. So if you have people that you think might be interested, they could watch it or with it. I won't be on it, but the slides will be on it, hopefully. So you don't have to worry about the weird faces I make when I can't read my notes in front of me. Heritage Preservation Commission for supporting this program and providing resources and throwing out ideas. It is a city commission. There are some city positions open up right now. So if you're interested in participating in some civic activities, I recommend going to the City of Ely website, taking a look at that. And then the Dorothy Wolter Museum sponsors this by allowing me to do a lot of the research on my work time. So yay for the Dorothy Wolter Museum letting me do that. So tonight we're going to talk about Ely ski jumps. I think that there's not anybody in here that has a question about skiing being a part of the thread that makes up the fabric of our Ely community and the Ely area. Although cross-country skiing seems to be the king in this town, depending on which kind of cross-country skiing you enjoy. But Ely has a rich history of another kind of skiing, competitive ski jumping. And I know that there are some folks here that were involved in this, some more recently than others. And ski jumping is the oldest winter sport in the Winter Olympics, which the next Winter Olympics coming up is in 2026 in Italy. So if you feel inspired by this program, competitions and qualifications are happening now. So check that stuff out. But before we kind of go into specific Ely history, we're going to talk a little bit about skiing in general and history, which this is a fun part of the program that I really enjoy learning a little at a deeper level when preparing for this program. And so we're going to take a step back in time to when skiing was invented and wrap our brains around how having 2 feet strapped into really long pieces of wood became voluntarily flying through the air for tens of meters with them on. And according to the BBC, skis were invented before the wheel. About 22,000 years ago, when an ice cap covered much of the northern hemisphere and Cro-Magnon man was first attaching 2 sticks to his feet, it was not to race down a snowy mountain for fun, it was for survival and for hunting and gathering. I mentioned a book to a couple people that I found some information for this in, and the author is Roland Huntford, and the title is 2 Planks and a Passion, A Dramatic History of Skiing. So if you are an avid reader, that might be another one to add to your book list. However, we know the Ice Age went away eventually, and as it waned, the use of sledges, skis, and snowshoes by early humans made access to areas impassable in the warmer season passable. So marshes and wetlands where their feet would sink, they would have a little bit of level with the snow, but still without something on your feet, you're post-holing through those areas. And with the aid of skis and snowshoes, winter became a time for travel with snow as the main highway. There are also quite a few origin stories about where the early technology of skis came from. One prominent one is from Russia among the Ossetic people in the Siberia region. Ossetic is a general term for actually a group of indigenous tribes in northern Siberia. And the myth that they have is that a god called Tunkpox, who went hunting, was in the heavens and he was chasing this animal, and the animal jumped down to earth. And when Tunkpox followed, things went so badly that he broke one of his skis and was forced to continue the hunt on one ski. And the moral of the story is, which is still relevant today, even godlike skiers can get into trouble. So if you study the Milky Way, you'll see that two ski tracks in the heavens merge to form a single track. And references to skis appear in the earliest historical writings, but skis have been the stuff of myths that predate the written word. In Norse mythology, Ullr is considered to be the god of skiing and winter sports. He's called upon for safety when skiing down a mountain, for good luck in hunting, and his name has some Germanic roots and is associated with the words honor, glory, and splendor. Very positive, happy feelings. Ullr is also famous for calling the snow when the mountains are bare. We could have really used him in December. Ullr Fest, a yearly tradition in many parts of the world, calls for making a giant bonfire where people gather to burn their old pairs of skis. This is considered as a sacrifice, so Ullr will accept your gift and bless your mountains with plenty of snow in return. Skadi, on the other hand, the Norse goddess of winter, frost, mountains, hunting, and ski travel. She's known to be a solitary hunter, often accompanied by a white wolf. And linguistic evidence suggests that her name Skadi is what Scandinavia came from. And her name is from the verb skada, to hurt, harm, injure, and damage. Yeah. A little bit more intense. So for a snowy winter, it's believed that we should call out to Skadi and praise her by sacrificing our old skis to the bonfire. And in my opinion, Ullr seems to fit kind of the easygoing, like ski bum guy that's just having a good time, and he'd really like it if you donated your skis in his honor. And I think if we are going to make any kind of sacrifice, we want to keep Skadi happy. So we should probably burn our skis in a bonfire for her, just because she sounds kind of scary. So how did we get from single plates on our feet to hunt reindeer for survival to that flying through the air 100 meters and landing on a very firm base of snow? And skiing as a leisure sport originated in Telemark, Norway. And with immigration to North America, of course, this popped up in the United States in the mid-1800s, and competition showed up with alpine ski races between miners in the Sierra Nevadas who had been using 10-foot skis to maneuver the mountains and began holding races amongst themselves. However, ski jumping can be traced, again, to Norway, when Olaf Rye jumped 9.5 meters in either 1808 or 1809. There's some question to the exact date. And he crashed on impact. People were apparently so intrigued by this new way of risking one's own personal safety, they began jumping off hills with skis too. Skill and courage improved until 1862, when Norwegian Sondre Norheim jumped 30 meters, literally off the roof of his family's house, and he stuck it. He landed that. And that record stood for 3 decades. and he's widely considered to be the father of ski jumping. In 1866, the world's first ski jumping competition with prizes, which I found in many resources was a distinction, that there were prizes at this one, was in Often, Norway. And of course, again, Norwegian immigrants brought this exhilarating sport to the United States in the late 1800s, and the first competition in the United States, probably with prizes, was held in St. Paul in 1887. Which, fun fact, next month is going to be a little history on winter festivals, and St. Paul had the first winter festival in the United States. Shortly thereafter, within a year actually, in 1888, Ely was founded, and from that moment, Nordic skiing was part of the culture, thanks to a robust Scandinavian representation, and it didn't take too long for a ski jump to be built. The first 30-meter ski jumping hill was built in 1923 on a hill southwest of Central Avenue and Patterson Street. If you know where the Oasis International Church is, it's kind of right behind there. Sometimes they call it the James Street Ski Jump. And according to David Kess's article recently in the Echo on January 6th, which I also did see it's in the Timbergate too, it was a rather crude jump constructed of lumber, and sadly, as a result of that construction, it blew over the following year. Sadly. Now, there are some date discrepancies. One of the resources I used for this was a ski jumping archive website, which has an extensive history of ski jumping, especially around the United States. And the Ely Miner, former newspaper here, states that in 1926, a new and improved jump opened to much fanfare and was used until 1959. Although after that time, in 1959, it didn't keep adventurous children like David Kess from daring each other to climb the rickety slide in the summer, trying to avoid the rotten boards and the gaps. And in one alleged youthful prank, Facebook user Joe V, so protect his anonymity, recalls rolling an old tire down the jump, thinking it would stop at the bottom and get stuck in the snow. Instead, the tire kept rolling, rolled all the way down Central, and slammed into the co-op store's door. Patrons ran out of the store trying to figure out what had happened and couldn't figure out how that tire had gotten there. All the while, the youth were hiding at the top of the ski jump for 45 minutes, waiting to make sure when they came down, they wouldn't get caught. So let's take a moment here and talk about what is ski jumping. So ski jumping is measured and scored in a very particular way. And sometimes when they talk about the hill size, the first thing that comes to mind is how tall it is, but that's not exactly how it's measured. It's measured in the length of the jump or the hill. So the hill size is how it's measured. And it's defined by the distance between the takeoff, which is the green part. There's a little arrow and it looks like a little ledge. So the lift or the takeoff, and the end of the landing slope. So the landing slope is kind of hard to see, but the blue part kind of in the middle. And then you'll see there's two red dots there. But it's not measured in a straight line. It's measured along the slope that the jumper takes flying through the air. So after the takeoff, the skier shoots out over the knoll or the lift and is airborne until they land on that landing slope and run off their speed through the transition area and the outrun. So the landing slope is ideally where they want to land, and there's a goal. Each skier, they have how far they can go and what the competition is, and they want to hit that point, that distance. And then there's a little spot between the landing slope and the outrun where you don't want to land after that. You want to land before that. And then, of course, the outrun is where you just kind of burn off that steam and slow down so you're not crashing into all the spectators at the end. So the point where the landing zone meets the transition is known as the K point. There's a lot of technological terms here that I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around still. But we have Terry Jackson here, and he was actually a judge for this, so we can tap his brain for more details if we need to, if we have questions at the end. But the K point is basically kind of the place where you want to land, and that's where the jump is measured at. So if you see written down a ski slope in K86 or K70 or K30, that's the distance of the jump. Now, at a jumping event like the Olympics, officials require skiers to make a practice jump, and then they have 2 competition jumps, because this is really actually kind of dangerous to be doing this. And so the practice jump allows the jumper and the coaches and the judges to make sure that this skier isn't going to overshoot and land in that after the transition area where you don't want to land. And so they look for the practice jumps to be okay, so they're not going to hurt themselves. And if they need to, they can move the jumper's starting point up or down the top of the slide. So if you think of the starting point at the very top, they can sometimes even start continuing down that slide. So if they have a really long jump, they're going to pull them down a little bit so they don't make as much speed. So like on a K70, they might be hitting 55 miles an hour at the time they hit that lip and come off. So it's more technical than I thought when I was first learning about this. And so if the officials think the jumper is going to exceed that, they'll push them down that slide a little bit and have them start closer so they shave off some of that speed. So how are these points calculated and what are they scored for? Now, in a nutshell, according to me and my ignorance with ski jumping, it appears that each jumper needs to come strong with their charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. However, technically, according to Nordic USA, their nutshell is that jumpers attend to land as far as possible down the hill. So they are judged on both the length of the jump and style, which when I saw that, I thought, that sounds really subjective. And so I was curious, what kind of judging is this? So in more detail, the jumpers can also receive or lose points based on the spot they start on the slide. So it's called the in run, but on that slidey part. But also, which I thought was very fair, points can be added for less favorable wind conditions. So if the wind is working against you and it's going to affect your ability to jump as far as you normally would on a calm day, they compensate you with the point system. If there's a headwind that might give you more lift, then they take away some points. So they're very clearly trying to make it as fair as possible. And the distance jumps is measured along the curve of the landing hill from the takeoff point to the exact place where the jumper's feet touch the slope. Today, just like most other professional sporting events, video cameras are used to be extra fair also. And a ski jumper can earn style points on a scale of 0 to 20 from 5 judges. The highest and lowest scores are eliminated. A jump with the perfect power, boldness, precision, fluidity, and control of their body on this jump from takeoff through the flight, the landing, and the outrun where they run out of speed and slow down and stop, can earn a maximum of 60 style points. I still don't understand the point system, but it sounds really cool, and now I really want to watch competitions. The landing specifically, now ideally, jumpers are to land in the telemark position. And this is a very common term used in the skiing world, which I, of course, am not part of. But this is when you have one ski in front of the other, leaning or lunging forward in your landing. So, like the one with the green check, as opposed to the other. Okay, so back to Ely. Now that we kind of have an idea of what's going on, And what are people doing? Knowing that there are children 5 years old doing this, starting this in the ski program that existed here in Ely, let's go back to what we had here. So from 1923, with the very first one, and then it fell down, and then they rebuilt it. When Ely started having ski jumps, sometimes referred to the slide, until the 1950s, when a new jump was installed, hundreds of Elyites, young and old, took part in ski jumping, with many earning honors and accolades in regional competitions. The Ely Ski Club was making waves in the ski jumping world as the youngest organization in the north end of the country as early as 1927. According to the Ski Jumping Hill Archive, in 1959, a 35-meter jump was moved from Battle Creek, Michigan, and erected at what we now call Hidden Valley. Already at that time, there were numerous ski jumpers in Ely who were quite proficient and successful. And from 1959 to 1982, this was also in the newspaper articles, there were only 2 years that Ely did not send ski jumpers to the Junior National Championships. I was in sports in high school, but we never made nationals. We thought we were good, but yeah. So many years, every year, kids from Ely went to junior nationals. The only years they didn't were 67 and 72. So I'm sorry if any of you in those years were here and didn't make it. Hopefully you got over that by now. Out of those years, there were 4 junior national champions. Bob Banovitz in 1961, Bob Hedloff in 1963, Mike Williams in 1978, and his brother Tim Williams, pictured here, in 1980. We also saw in 1979 James Grahek, who is an Elyite. At the time he was in college, he was 22 years old. He had been ski jumping since he was 5, made the U.S. ski jumping team for the 1980 Olympics to be held in Lake Placid. Jimmy once stated about ski jumping that, quote, "It's flying like Superman without the cape," which made sense in my mind, having never done this before. Jim was a member of the U.S. ski jumping team from 1980 to 84. Following the Olympics, Jim went on to the Swiss jumping tour. He and fellow Elyite Tim Williams, who was pictured previously, jumped together on several European hills as well. In 1990, Jim won the National Masters Class Ski Jumping Championship. His last official ski jumping competition was in '96 at the International Masters Championships in Steamboat, Colorado, and he placed 7th. Ely also boasts a total of 4 ski jumpers in the American Ski Jumping Hall of Fame. Lenny Napa, who is pictured in images here, and Clarence Sophie Hedlock were inducted in 2014, and more recently, Tim Williams and Jim Grahek in 2022. According to the Ski Jumping Hill Archive, in 1982, the multi-year construction of a second, larger 70-meter hill began, costing about $530,000 and required countless hours of volunteer work, which to me does not surprise me that this investment was made with the legacy that up until this point Ely had of ski jumpers. It opened for skiing with world famous skier Matti Nikkanen, who was the only ski jumper in history, and according to his Wikipedia, still is, to have won all 5 of the sport's major events. A gold medal at the Winter Olympics 3 times, the Ski Jumping World Championships once, the Ski Flying World Championships once, 4 World Cup overall titles, and 2 Four Hills tournament titles. A former jumper named Mark commented in an online forum, "One of the best parts of jumping at Hidden Valley was that there was a rope tow alongside the landing, and a jumper didn't have to climb back up the steps to get to the tower for another jump, and they were able to get way more rides in the same amount of time than they otherwise would have." And this is, oh, I'm a little behind on my slides here. think my battery's dying on my clicker. One of you guys click this for me?
Which one?
Yeah. There we go. There's Maddie jumping on the ski jump. Sorry, I'm gonna add the. Oh, there we go. All right. This new, bigger jump positioned Ely to train its skiers more effectively for competition, as well as host events, including the World Cup team competition in Nordic combined in 86 and 89. Nordic combined is where the athletes compete in both ski jumping and cross-country skiing. And Ely also hosted the 1987 Junior Nationals, which is what this image was from, and is in one of Nordic USA's articles on their websites, which was very prominent. Unfortunately and sadly, in the 1990s, there was a shift economically and in interest with ski jumping, and for Ely, the increasing costs of insurance just couldn't justify keeping the jump open. There was also a larger, more attractive winter sports area that had opened in Bowavic, 45 minutes away. The jump sat unused for just over a decade until Norge Ski Hill in Fox River, Illinois contacted Ely in 2002. Bart Lockhart, president of the Norge Ski Club, negotiated with the city of Ely to purchase the jump for $1, which is going to be dismantled for scrap. Lockhart and his team dismantled it and put the steel on 18 flatbed semi-trucks and convoyed 600 miles to Chicago. They rebuilt it in a parking lot and then rented low-gravity bulldozers to smooth the hill grade, which is very, very important for ski jumping for safety. And they imported plastic matting from Finland to accommodate summer training. The project totaled about $500,000, which was still a deal considering fabrication for a new jump like that at that time was $850,000. Construction had to stop when Native American skeletal remains were found, but the project was able to complete just days before their annual event in 2004. This jump from Ely has been put to good use, and in 2018, an unprecedented showing of 3 jumpers from the Chicago area made the U.S. Olympic ski team, which I know the folks that are into ski jumping know that's a big deal. So where are we now? Those of you that have been up to Hidden Valley know this is supposed to be a picture of current Hidden Valley, which doesn't have ski jumps. You can still see the hill. You can check for you. Technical difficulties. That's all right. I got all the good pictures out of the way already, so I'm not panicking silently and secretly out here. So today there's some remnants out there. If you ever go there in the summer, you see much more of that. And even though ski jumping is not locally available, there are numerous resources to get into skiing. The closest ski jump to Ely is in Coleraine at Mount Itasca. But we do have a very active, and we'll try this again, robust cross-country ski community currently in Ely, both organized and just for fun. In fact, I know one person here who thinks nothing of going out and skiing 30 miles in a day, which is very impressive to me because I do not do that. So, of course, like I mentioned, this program is not to deep dive into any one topic, but to inspire you to want to go out and learn a little bit more. Like I mentioned, we have Harry Jackson here, whose son more recently was a ski jumper and he was a judge, who is a wealth of information. We also have the Ely Winton Historical Society, David Kess. Johnny Hyde is here, who had an article in the Ely Winter Times about ski jumping almost 10 years ago. So my goal is to encourage you to take advantage of a lot of these local resources, both live people you can talk to and organizations you can go to. So the next History Happy Hour is deviating from the normal schedule of the third Wednesday of the month. It's going to be on Tuesday, February 6th, so that it can be during the Ely Winter Festival. So of course, we're going to be talking about winter festivals. And if you have never been to Ely Trivia Night, which is the second Thursday of the month, held here in the same spot, there is always at least one question from History Happy Hour on the trivia. So you got a leg up if you go to the next trivia night. And so with that, I would just like to acknowledge the resources that I use to gather information. My technique for doing this program is quick and dirty. So I find publicly available information that literally anybody can access and compile it all together and hopefully make it interesting and maybe a little bit entertaining. I heard some laughing, so at least one of my jokes landed. But some of our local resources include the Ely Winton Historical Society, the Ely Echo, the Ely Summer Times, Sherry Schoberg, USA Nordic Sport, which is online, the Ely Nordic Ski and Bike Club, Dolly Putzel-Lindroos. Who else is local here? We've got David Kest, and then these other ones, All American Ski Jumping Hall of Fame and Museum, Inlandet Fylkeskommun. We'll see if I said that right. I don't think anybody here is going to tell on me if I didn't. And of course, the Ski Jumping Hill Archive, which was a wealth of information on what we have here. And there are a lot of people that commented on the page there about, you know, how cool it was and them growing up. So people that no longer live here. So if you are one of those folks, I encourage you to go there and join the community. So thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting local history and learning and education. And again, you're invited to finish your beverages up here and then make your way downstairs for open mic night or to whatever else you have going on this very chilly evening. So thank you.